Good afternoon. Welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep. Welcome to your Tuesday editorial analysis. I hope you can see me and hear me clearly. Please give me a thumbs up if you do, and I can start the session. My name is Savitri Krishnamurty, and as you know, I teach English and Logic at BYJU'S, and every Tuesday I do an editorial analysis from a linguistic point of view. This is to help you do well in the reading comprehension section of any aptitude test, and Maharashtra CET is the exam we are looking at today. So today's class, overall the pattern remains the same. I give you 4 or 5 RC questions and 4 or 5 questions based on vocabulary and grammar. For today's editorial, I have chosen an editorial from the Hindu based on the Supreme Court's ruling on electoral bond schemes. So let's look at that. As always, I'll give you 30 seconds to read each slide, and then I'll summarize it for you, and then we'll move on to the other section. All right, let's start. All right, so what is the first paragraph about? Anonymous donations. Anonymous means no name. You don't know whose it is. An unsigned letter is called an anonymous letter where the name of the author, the letter writer, is not given. Similarly, donations. I give you a check without signing my name on it, or give a donation without telling you from where the donation has come. That's an anonymous donation. Anonymous, you can't do that to a check. You have to sign a check. So I suppose in some other way the donation is given. Anonymous donations of high value tend to undermine electoral democracy and governance as they facilitate a quid pro quo culture involving donors and beneficiaries. The first line sounds tough, but break it up. When you have anonymous donations, you don't know who has given the donation. They are not good for the electoral democracy. Why? Because there is a quid pro quo. You do this for me, I'll do this for you. That happens between donors and beneficiaries. I'm giving you money. The world doesn't know who's given the money, but you and I know. And so because I've given you the donation, you and I have a special bond because I've given you the money, or you've given me the money. I'll say, this person, I gave you this much donation, now you do this favor for me. All right, so that is what will happen when you have anonymous donations of high value in a democracy. In striking down the EBS, or the electoral bond scheme, under which anyone can buy electoral bonds and donate them to political parties for encashment, the Supreme Court of India has recognized this malaise. And wait, let me get my pen. Sorry. I do not like writing in red. So the Supreme Court has recognized this malaise. Malaise is a disease, an illness, an ailment. So what is the electoral bond scheme? Where you can buy bonds of any value and donate it. So that money that bond can be encashed, and political parties can use that money for their political ends. This was struck down by the Supreme Court. It says no more electoral bonds, because the government says it recognized this malaise, it recognized this problem that electoral bonds create for a democracy, and it has struck a blow for democracy and transparency in political funding. So what did it do? It is a move that has helped democracy and transparency in political funding. The court found that the entire scheme violates the Constitution, especially the voters' right to information. Now I've got a huge donation and I'll say, oh, the EBS is there, anonymous donations are allowed. As a voter, you do not know from where the party is getting money, who is funding the party. So the Supreme Court said it's against the Constitution and it's against the voters' right to information. When a political party says, I need not disclose the source of my funds, I do not know. It further found manifestly arbitrary the amendments to the Companies Act that removed the cap of 7.5% of a company's profit that can be donated to political parties without any requirement to disclose details of the recipient parties in its profits and loss account. So earlier, there is a rule which says companies can also donate to political parties, but there is a cap, 7.5% of its profits. Now, what happened is an amendment to the Companies Act removed this cap. Now, companies can give any amount to political parties and do not have to disclose it in their profit and loss account to whom they've given the money. They can only show, we've given this much to a political party, but they need not show to whom they have given. So this also the Supreme Court did not agree with. What else did it do? It also mandated disclosure of donation details since 2019. What's the year now? 23. Since 2019, it wants to know political parties and donation details. Where did you get the donation from? Who has given you funds? The judgment is one more in a long line of verdicts of the court has handed down to promote voter rights and preserve the purity of elections. So the Supreme Court has been at it. It's given a long line of verdicts to ensure that voters' rights are preserved, and so is the purity of elections. Its earlier interventions led to the featuring of the none of the above nota option in the ballot, the removing of the protection given to legislators from immediate disqualification on conviction for a criminal offense, the mandatory disclosure of assets and criminal antecedents of the candidates in their election affidavits, and expedited trials for MPs and MLAs involved in criminal offenses. All these have been a result of the Supreme Court verdict, all these benefits. Today you have a nota option on the ballot paper. That's because of the Supreme Court verdict. I don't like any of the candidates, but I still want to vote. I want to exercise my franchise. Then what will I do? I can go and mark the nota option. None of the candidates. I don't like any of them. So that was allowed. Then similarly, protection was given to legislators from immediate disqualification. It removed that. So a lot of benefits the Supreme Court through its verdict has given for the voters and for democracy. Let's read the next passage, next paragraph. 40 seconds. All right, what does the author say next? The court's reasoning was unexceptionable. What is the meaning of exceptionable? Do not get confused between exceptional and exceptionable. Yashashvi Jaiswal's double century the other day was exceptional, fantastic, remarkable. Exceptionable means objectionable, something that you take exception to. You say, this is not right, then that is exceptionable. The court's reasoning is unexceptionable. You cannot object. You have to agree with the court's reasoning. That means it has used solid and correct reasoning. It found that the primary justification for EBS curbing the use of black money for political and electoral funding by allowing donations through banking channels failed the test of proportionality. Now, the primary purpose of EBS was through banks. All funding to political, not cash, not directly through banks, you are going to curb black money. But what has happened is, the biggest problem with it is it does not align with the test of proportionality. Why? It was not the least restrictive measure to abridge the voters' right to know. Now, there are a lot of measures that can happen, that the government can take, which somewhere or the other affect our right to know. This amendment was not the least restrictive. That means it was quite restrictive beyond what the Supreme Court thought justified. It has made the logical connection between unidentified corporate donations and the likelihood of policy decisions being tailored to suit the donors. So when you have donors, when you have businessmen, when you have corporations, companies donating to political parties, why would they give money to political parties? Obviously, if the party comes to power, they expect favors. It made this connection. And therefore, the Supreme Court did not like this scheme. The judgment is a natural follow-up to a principle it had laid down years ago, that the voters' freedom of expression under Article 19(1)(a) will be incomplete without access to information on a candidate's background. So now background, second now rule, where does the funding come from? The principle that we have every right to know everything about a candidate standing for elections. Earlier it was restricted to background. Now the principle has been extended to removing the veil of corporate donors who may have been funding ruling parties in exchange for favors. So when it was anonymous, you wouldn't know who was funding the political party. So it has removed that veil now. Now you will know which corporation, which corporate is funding which party and how much. While the verdict may help ease the hold that donors may have on governance through money power, he says, yeah, this may happen, that the stronghold that a company will have on the government, I've given you money, you better do me favors, that power will decrease. But the author has another objection to this entire question. Question that arises is whether the validity of the scheme could have been decided earlier. Why didn't you do this decision? Why didn't you take this decision earlier? Why didn't you strike off this EBS thing earlier? And second, or the issuance of bonds on a regular basis. Why didn't the government stay? Why didn't the court stay or stop the issuance of EBS on a regular basis? How much of the thousands of crores rupees given to parties under this scheme resulted in policy measures favoring the donors or helped fund the deployment of additional campaign resources will never be known. We will never know whether this money that was given by companies to political parties was used as a favor for a policy or was really used by the party for helping it in its election campaigning. This was a fit case for the grant of an interim stay. The court should have granted an interim stay on this question, which it did not do. Question 1. What is the main point of the passage? So first paragraph, striking down of the EBS, purpose of the EBS, what is the result, what is the court's logic in striking down the EBS, and the author's thing of, yes, while damage has been restricted, still the court could have done this earlier. Right? No, a lot of money has already gone as funds to political parties, and therefore we do not know how much of it was used for campaigns and how much of it was used as a favor. So what is the main point of the passage? The Supreme Court's verdict is against the freedom of expression of the voters. No, it's not against. The author praises the Supreme Court for its various verdicts, including this one, to protect the freedom of expression of voters, to protect voter rights, to preserve democracy. The unprecedented verdict of the Supreme Court, it didn't say anything about whether there's a precedent, because earlier also Supreme Court has passed a lot of verdicts in favor of voters. So unprecedented is laudable. Though he is praising, it is laudable, but again, that's not the main point of the passage. And the word unprecedented verdict, what verdict are we talking about? The second problem with B, and this is a very common wrong option that you get in exams, is it's very general. What verdict is it talking about? What is it really unprecedented? Because the author has mentioned a line. This follows a line of verdicts of the Supreme Court. So it's not unprecedented. Therefore, B is not correct. The Supreme Court's striking down of the electoral bond scheme supports the freedom of expression of voters. Perfect. The EBS was highly flawed, and the Supreme Court's suggestion to amend it, the Supreme Court has struck it down. It has not even amended. It says no more EBS. Therefore, D is wrong. Therefore, the correct answer is C. Good. Question 2. What was the Supreme Court's main argument against electoral bonds? What was its main argument? It has said a lot of things against electoral bonds, but what is its main argument? The EBS violates the Constitution, especially the voters' right to information. It did say it. It promotes voter rights. If it does, then why would the Supreme Court strike it off? It failed the test of proportionality, true, though it was the least restrictive. It failed the test of proportionality as it was not the least restrictive. So C contradicts or says the opposite of what has been said in the passage. It failed to curb the use of black money. It did not say anything whether it failed. It says this is the primary purpose. Whether it failed or not, we do not know. But he said, while that was its primary purpose, it failed the test of proportionality. It didn't say that it didn't curb the use of black money. It said nothing about it. Its primary purpose was to curb the use of black money, but it failed to the test of proportionality. So nothing has been said about it failing the curbing of black money. It might have done it because it went through banks, so it must have curbed. It didn't say anything about that. Therefore, D is wrong. Therefore, my correct answer is A. Clear? Got that? Good. Question 3. Which of the following courses of action is the author most likely to agree with? Remember, at the end, he says that though this was good, still this could have been done. So, what exactly is he saying there? The validity of the scheme could have been decided after the ensuing elections. He wanted the validity of this scheme to have been questioned earlier. Why did it not stop the scheme earlier? So this contradicts what he said. An interim stay against the issuance of bonds on a regular basis. That's what he wanted. Therefore, the correct answer is B. All right? Okay. All right, next one is a critical reasoning question. Okay, the question is asking you what is an assumption, and I told you how to identify an assumption. Read the sentence and think of what did the author take for granted when he made this statement. What is a given that is in the author's mind when he makes this statement? Anonymous donations of high value tend to undermine electoral democracy and governance as they facilitate a quid pro quo culture involving donors and beneficiaries. Which of the following assumptions is implicit? What is the author taking for granted? Since he mentions anonymous donations of high value, he is taking into account that there can be anonymous donations of high value. EBS only says that you can make donations through banking channels, but without it being made public. So anonymous donations of high value can do this, means the author is assuming there can be anonymous donations of high value. Then he says they tend to undermine a democracy. So electoral democracy will be undermined by anonymous donations. He is saying if you give anonymous donations, electoral democracy will be weakened. That means this is capable of weakening it. So second is also an assumption. Then he says, how does it weaken a democracy? By forging a quid pro quo. You do this favor for me, I will do a favor for you. So it will form such a culture. So the assumption is a quid pro quo culture between donors and beneficiaries is possible, and according to the author, that will weaken democracy. So all three assumptions are implicit. Yes, Aman, you are correct. It is D. All right, next question. Which of the following can be inferred from the concluding lines? What is the strategy for any inference question? Read the concluding lines, and which of the options is 100% true based on what is given in those lines? That is a proper inference or conclusions. Anything that is beyond what has been stated or not stated in the passage is not the correct conclusion, right? So here the concluding line says, this was a fit case for the grant of an interim stay. What case is he talking about? EBS and the Supreme Court stopping it. The author says, why did the Supreme Court not grant an interim stay, not stop the payment of donations on a regular basis? So based on this, what can you conclude? A, the Supreme Court granted a stay against the issuance of bonds in the EBS case. B, the author believes that there should have been an interim stay in the case. C, the author is a lawyer and knows the conditions for granting a stay against the issuance of bonds on a regular basis, or all of the above. What is the answer for question 5? Please give me the question number and tell me what's the answer. Supreme Court granted a stay, author believes there should have been a stay, or the author is a lawyer and knows the conditions. Since he has said this was fit, this was the perfect, this was the ideal case, you should have granted a stay. The author says that. So from this, can we conclude that he is a lawyer and he is in a position to advise the Supreme Court on granting a stay or at least expressing an opinion? So which of the following is the correct option? A, the Supreme Court granted a stay. Aman, let's see. The Supreme Court did not grant a stay. The author says the Supreme Court, this was a fit case for the grant of an interim stay. Just before that, what did the author say? Let me take you back to those lines. He says, while the verdict may ease the hold that donors have on governance, a question that arises is whether the validity of the scheme could have been done earlier. The Supreme Court should have decided on the validity of the scheme earlier. Second, or the issuance of bonds on a regular basis stayed. That means the Supreme Court should have granted a stay on the issuance of bonds. But that does not mean that the Supreme Court has granted a stay. If it had, then the author wouldn't have said it should have done it. Understood? Therefore, here, so this is contradicts it. Why is the author saying the Supreme Court should have given a stay? A cannot be. The author believes there should have been. Yes, that's actually this is nothing but this sentence rephrased. The Supreme Court should have granted a stay, should have put a stay, so donations would have stopped. That was continuing. That is what the author is objecting to. We do not know the author's profession. Anybody can give. I can also write an edit. This is the opinion of the editor of the newspaper. He may be a lawyer, but I can't say for sure that he is a lawyer. Even without being a lawyer, if I'm a constitutional expert, if I have enough knowledge of legal matters, I will know about this. Right? So I can't definitely say that the author is a lawyer. Therefore, C is not the correct answer, and the correct answer is B. Clear? Understood? Alright, let's move to the next question. He says the anonymous bonds, electoral bonds, helped create a quid pro quo culture. What does the author mean? Quid pro quo culture between the donors and beneficiaries. I've given you the donation, that is the government. The donor is a company. If I give a political party money expecting it to win, then when that party is in power, the party will have to have policies in place which will help me. That is a quid pro quo culture. I'll help you, you also have to help me. Okay, so what does the expression quid pro quo culture mean? Revenge, retribution, payment, or trade-off with the capital T. All others are in capital. So what is the correct answer for 6? A, B, C, or D? Please mark your answers and tell me. Quid pro quo culture. I scratch your back, you scratch my back. That's called the quid pro quo culture. What does that mean? Revenge, retribution, payment, or trade-off. Question 6. Revenge. You do a wrong to me and I get back. Badla. In Hindi it's called badla. Retribution is the same thing. So it's neither this nor this. Is it C or D? Which is a better? D. Trade-off. I give you something, you give me back something. Simran, perfect. Okay. So the correct answer is trade-off. Now, some students ask me, is tit for tat the same as quid pro quo? Tit for tat generally is used in a negative sense. You hit me, I'll hit you back. That's tit for tat. Quid pro quo, on the other hand, has a positive connotation. Alright, so that is the difference. Alright, the contextual meaning of the word expedited is what? Expedited, jaisa ko taisa. That is tit for tat. Alright, what is the meaning of the word expedite? Give me the question number, please. Okay, Aman and others, write down the question number and the answer, because sometimes your answers come in a little late. I don't know if this D is the answer to the previous question or the present question. The contextual meaning of the word expedited. Now, when they ask you the contextual meaning, if you do not know the meaning, always go back to the passage. Sometimes even if you know the meaning of the word, the contextual meaning would be different from the actual meaning. A little different. So every word has, you have the main meaning, the most common meaning. The one that I give students, the example is this word, quarry. What is the meaning of quarry? You know, whenever you read about the Taj Mahal, you read about how the marble quarries in Rajasthan, people from Rajasthan, the workers dragged marble from the quarries of Rajasthan. Okay, so the common meaning of quarry is a site for digging stone, right? Or site. Okay, now what is this? They say that if you are, well, these are all the scary hunter stories. Whenever hunters find if they spot a wolf, they're normally very scared. Okay, very rarely would you find a lone wolf on a hunt, because wolves hunt in packs, and the moment they sense their quarry, they surround the quarry. So here the meaning of a quarry is the prey, the target of a hunt. This was the word it was used, this was the meaning in which a word was used in a test, and most students went and marked the earlier word. So now, what is the meaning of expedited trials? To expedite. You have somebody in a government office, you want work to be done. Chacha ka bhai hai, काम जल्दी हो जाएगा. So he will help you expedite the process. So what does expedite mean? Tell me now. Wait, let me go to the... Yeah. Deferred, hastened, postponed, procrastinated. What is the meaning of the word expedited? Accelerated, uska, what is the word here for that? Accelerated is correct. Expedite is काम को जल्दी करना. Which word here is the correct answer therefore? Expedited means to do something faster. So hastened, option B. Deferred is to put back. The date has been deferred to Sunday. Meeting aaj tha, instead of that it is on Sunday. Then they'll say the meeting has been deferred to Sunday, which is the same thing as postpone. Procrastinate is to put off. Suppose you have a paper that you have to submit tonight. And you get up in the morning and you'll say, by 10 a.m. I'll finish the paper. Then 10 a.m. when the time comes, you'll say, nahi, chai ka time hai. 12 baje karungi. So what are you doing? You're procrastinating. You're pushing off to a later time. Okay? Postponement is where the date is fixed. My exam date is on March 1st, and then the notification comes out, the exam will not be held on March 1st, it will be held on March 15th. Then it is postponed. You have to do a work in the morning and you'll say, main sham ko kar lungi, then you are procrastinating it. Did you get the difference? All right. Next question. The word deployment. Deployment of resources for campaigning. What is the meaning of the word deployment in the context of the passage? Deployment of resources for campaigning. Attitude, disposition, utilization, or discharge. Question 8. What's the answer? The meaning of the word deployment. Deployment of troops, deployment of resources. Deployment of troops, the meaning is slightly different. China deployed troops near the border, then India will also deploy troops. Deployment of resources means what? A, B, C, or D? Question 8. Utilization. The other meaning is arrangement. Positioning of troops is also called deployment of troops. Okay? All right. Next one. Prepositions. The moment we talk of non-CAT exams, NMAT, SNAP, MAH CET, whatever exam, there's a lot of stress on fill in the blanks, and there are two types of fill in the blanks. One is vocabulary based fill in the blanks, the other one is grammar based, and most of the questions on grammar based fill in the blanks are based on prepositions. Articles or prepositions. ZAT has some articles also, but generally MAH CET, it's prepositions, sometimes conjunctions. So let's test your knowledge of prepositions. The electoral bond verdict is a blow dash the freedom of expression. To, for, from, or both to and for work. What do you think is the meaning? Utilization is correct, Aman, for the earlier question. Question 9. What is the preposition you want here? When Ravichandran Ashwin bowled very well, took his 5,500th wicket, but he got, there was a personal crisis and he left the match to be with his mother. It was a blow to or for the Indian team. One of your best bowlers has to go. You can't say no because family is important. Family is the most important thing. So it was a blow to. That is correct. Now let me just take you back. Blow to somebody means किसी को धक्का लगना. Okay? Blow for is a point in support. It's a modern usage. In fact, the first time I read it in a newspaper, I was very surprised. Okay, and then it's been a constant factor in the Hindu. I have seen this. In fact, I had questioned it once, saying, how can it be a blow for? Blow to or for mein farak hai. To means it's where is it? Oh, it's not here. It's not here. I just gave it as an example. Yeah, blow to somebody is a negative. You're hit by it. A blow for means a blow in your point in your support. So both A and B are correct. Okay. This move will work in favor of students. So it's a blow for somebody. Blow to means it's against. So both are useful, and this is very different from what I have learned. So the first time I came across blow for freedom, iska matlab hi kya hai? Then you looked up the dictionary told you accepted, therefore you accepted. Alright, appropriate phrasal verb. This is also tested. The judgment is one more. In a long line of verdicts, the court has dash to promote voter rights and to preserve the purity of elections. Given up, handed down, zeroed in, proclaimed out. What has the court done? The court has given a line of verdicts to promote voter rights and preserve the purity of elections. And this is just one more, right? So what does the court do? Does it give up, hand down, zero in, or proclaim out? What is the word used for court judgments? Verdicts of the court, judgments of the court, what phrasal verb would you use? Given up, handed down, zeroed in, or proclaimed out? Option A, B, C, or D. Question number 10. Quickly mark your answers. Proclaim means chilla ke bolna. Okay? Zeroed in nahi. So it cannot be court has proclaimed. The court gives a judgment, but not gives up. Handed down. The court is seen as somebody in a higher position. So it will hand down a verdict, hand down a judgment. Got it? The other point about handed down is traditions from earlier generation, they are handed down to the later generations. Zeroed in means to focus. 10 log hain and you are focusing only on one, so you are zeroing in. If you are stating something, announcing something, then the word proclaimed is used. But courts do not proclaim out a judgment. They hand down judgment. So the correct answer is B. Okay? All right. I hope you enjoyed that session. Remember, we'll have short sessions on editorials every Tuesday, and I start bang at 12. So be there exactly at 12 so you don't miss out. I'll give you 30 seconds to 40 seconds for each of the slides. Keep this half an hour to 40 minutes. Then your reading comprehension practice for the day is done. When you're sitting with others and doing it, it enthuses me to do it with you and you to do it with me. Those of you who've taken CAT and want to see what are the colleges where you still stand a chance to get in, do fill this form, see our college predictor, and get to know what college is good for your score and for your background. If you have any doubts about our courses, about our classes, do fill this form, check the pinned comment and fill the form. One of our counselors will call and talk to you. All right, join any or all of our social media channels so that you get notifications of all our sessions. I will see you again next Tuesday exactly at 12. Do ensure that you're there at 12 and we solve or try to read and understand one more editorial, maybe Hindu, maybe Indian Express, maybe an article from Aeon. I will see you again very soon. Until then, keep reading, keep working hard. Bye-bye.